The watching eyes. The red sun was low in the sky, painting the colony fields with long shadows. Children laughed in the distance, their voices sharp and bright like bells in the dry air. A round ball bounced between them, flying high, then rolling across the sand. The game was fast. Feet kicked, hands clapped, tails swayed, and the air was filled with joy. But she only watched. From a flat rock near the old fence, a young alien girl sat still, her large eyes following every movement of the game. She wanted to run. She wanted to jump. She wanted to feel the dust rise beneath her feet as the others did. Yet she did not move. Her body leaned forward with longing, but her legs betrayed her. Or rather, the single leg she had left. Where one limb should have been, there was only emptiness. Hidden under a cloth tied tightly at the knee, the other children never invited her. They did not need to say why. She already knew. With one leg, she could not run fast. She could not kick the ball. She could not chase or dodge. To them, she was not a player. She was only a shadow on the sidelines. She lowered her gaze, staring at her hands. Long fingers pressed into the dust, leaving marks she quickly rubbed away. Again and again, she repeated the motion, as if erasing her own presence. The laughter in the distance cut deeper than silence ever could. Every so often, a child's eyes would flick toward her, a look of guilt, a flicker of pity. Then they would turn away quickly, ashamed, and throw themselves back into the game. Better to pretend she wasn't there. Better to ignore her loneliness than face it. Her chest tightened. The ball rolled close to the fence just a few meters from her rock. For one wild moment, she imagined rising, leaping down, catching it before it stopped rolling. She could throw it back, maybe even kick it. Maybe they would cheer. Maybe they would smile at her. Maybe they would see her as more than broken. Her heart pounded at the thought. She gripped the edge of the stone, ready to lift herself up. But the moment passed. Another child dashed over, laughing, kicking the ball back into play without even glancing at her. Dust rose in the air, and the sound of running feet faded as quickly as it had come. Her hands loosened. She sank back into stillness. The truth pressed against her, heavy and cold. She did not belong. The colony stretched far across the desert, but for her, the world was small. The game field, the old fence, the rock where she always sat. It was her prison, built not of stone or metal, but of weakness and silence. Her thoughts often drifted backward to the day she lost her leg. She remembered flashes, the roar of machinery, the sharp cry of her mother, the heat of fire against her skin. She remembered the endless nights afterward, lying awake while pain burned through her body. Most of all, she remembered the stares. Not cruel, not angry, just pity. Pity that wrapped around her like chains. Since then, the world had gone quiet for her. She spoke little. She smiled less. Only her eyes remained alive, always watching, always following the games she could never join. On this day, the sky burned orange as the sun dipped lower. Shadows grew longer and the game slowed as the children grew tired. She knew soon they would leave, racing back to the colony halls for food and rest. And she would still be here alone with only the empty sand for company. Her gaze dropped again to her missing leg. She touched the cloth around it lightly, as if hoping one day it might change, as if her fingers could call back what had been taken. But nothing happened. Nothing ever happened. The laughter in the distance rang again and her throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to cry, to demand the universe give her back what it stole. But she stayed silent. Silence was safer. Silence could not be mocked. The ball flew high, catching the dying light of the sun, and for a moment it looked like a star falling across the sky. Her eyes widened, filled with wonder and pain at once. A star she could never reach. A game she could never join. And yet, she did not look away. Because deep inside, hidden even from herself, a spark of hope still lived. Fragile, trembling, almost broken, but alive. Something in her heart whispered that this was not the end. That perhaps one day she would not be the girl on the rock, watching from the shadows. But for now she remained silent still, unseen. And the game went on without her. The past she can't escape. The desert wind sang low that night. Thin streams of sand drifted across the colony walls, whispering against the metal sheets like voices from another world. Inside a small room lit by a single lamp, the alien girl sat on her bed. Her hands curled around the fabric that covered her missing leg. She did not cry. She rarely cried anymore. But her eyes stayed open, wide, staring into the darkness as if the shadows would answer her questions. How had everything changed so quickly? Before the accident, she had been like the others. She remembered running barefoot across the red soil, her feet quick and light. She remembered chasing her friends through the dunes, her laughter carried far by the wind. She remembered climbing the old towers near the colony, fearless, daring, alive. But all of that ended in a single day. It was the day the machines roared. The colony was small, built on shifting ground where machines often worked to stabilize the soil. They were big things, taller than houses, with heavy arms that dug into the earth and pressed it flat. To a child, they looked like beasts of iron, dangerous yet fascinating. She had been warned to stay away. Everyone told her the same thing. The machines were not toys. But curiosity was louder than caution. That afternoon, while the others played, she wandered closer to the machines. She wanted to see the metal arms move. She wanted to hear the grinding sound from up close. At first, it was exciting. Dust rose high and the air shook with power. But then one wrong step changed everything. The ground collapsed beneath her. The soil had been weakened by the machines and her small body sank into the loose sand. She screamed, struggling. But before anyone could reach her, one of the machines turned. Its massive arm swung down, crashing close. The sharp edge tore through the ground and through her leg. Pain unlike anything she had ever known exploded through her body. She remembered the heat, the blood, the deafening sound of her own voice. She remembered her mother rushing forward, dragging her from the sand. She remembered the blur of faces above her, shouting, panicking, trying to stop the bleeding. After that, she remembered only darkness when she woke. Her world was smaller. The bed was hard. The air smelled of medicine and her body felt weak. She reached down and found only emptiness where her leg should have been. A bandage was wrapped tight around the wound, but nothing could hide the truth. Part of her was gone forever. Her mother tried to be strong, but the girl saw the tears she tried to hide. The doctor spoke softly, but their words were heavy. She would survive, yes, but she would never be the same. Days passed, then weeks. The wound healed, but her spirit did not. She watched other children running outside the window. Their games filled with joy she could no longer join. She pressed her face to the glass, her breath fogging the surface as if she could step through it and return to her old life. But she couldn't. The colony was kind at first. Neighbors visited, bringing food and soft words. They told her she was brave. They told her she was strong. But kindness soon turned to pity, and pity turned to silence. Children who once played with her now hesitated. They spoke less, laughed less when she was near. Some avoided her completely, as if her weakness might spread to them. Others smiled too much, treating her as fragile, different. It was worse than cruelty. It was erasure, and so she learned to sit quietly, to fade into the background, to accept that she was not part of the games anymore. At night, the memories haunted her. She would dream of running only to fall, her missing leg sinking into endless sand. She would wake with her heart racing, the room silent, her bed cold. The past would not release her. No matter how many days passed, it followed her like a shadow she could never escape. One evening, she returned to the rock by the old fence, watching the children play once again. The sun set low and the ball rolled fast across the dust. For a heartbeat, she forgot herself. She imagined running after it, her legs carrying her as they once had. She felt the wind in her face, the joy in her chest. But when she blinked, the vision broke. Reality returned. Her leg was gone. The game was not hers. She lowered her head, ashamed of her own imagination. Somewhere deep inside, anger smoldered. Not anger at the children, not anger at the machines, but at fate itself. Why her? Why had the universe chosen her for such pain? She did not know the answer. She only knew that every sunrise brought the same truth. She was broken and the world had moved on without her. Yet, a small spark still lingered. She did not understand it, could not name it. But it refused to die, it whispered softly, even as the past chained her down. This is not the end. The human arrival, the colony was not alone anymore. On the horizon, new ships had landed, silver shapes glinting beneath the twin suns. Humans had come, outsiders from a distant world, their language strange, their clothes different, their eyes filled with curiosity. Some in the colony welcomed them with open arms. Others whispered in doubt, suspicious of their machines, their voices, their motives. But for the girl, the humans were only shadows moving far away. She did not think they would notice her. After all, even her own people barely did. Yet fate had other plans. The first time he saw her was by chance. The human was an engineer, his hands always stained with dust and metal oil. He was older than the children, but still young enough to carry laughter in his smile. His job was to repair colony tools, study the alien machines, and keep the ground stable. But unlike the others, he liked to wander, to observe, to learn. That evening, as the children played ball on the sand, he walked near the old fence. His eyes followed the sound of laughter until they stopped at the rock. There she was, a small figure sitting alone, her gaze fixed on the game with a hunger that words could never describe. He noticed the cloth tied at her knee. He noticed the way her body leaned forward, almost ready to leap but never moving. He noticed her silence, sharper than the desert wind. The ball rolled close to her once, and he waited, expecting her to rise, to join, to throw it back. But she stayed still. Another child ran past, grabbed it, and returned to the game, leaving her untouched. Something inside the human stirred. He did not approach it first. Outsiders were not always welcome, and he did not want to frighten her. Instead, he watched quietly, trying to understand. The next day, he saw her again, on the same rock, in the same silence. This time, he crouched near the fence, pretending to fix a tool while his eyes studied her carefully. She looked so small against the wide desert, yet her eyes were larger than life, filled with dreams locked behind walls. He recognized that look. He had seen it before, on Earth, in children who had lost parts of themselves in accidents or war. Eyes that longed to run, to live, but were trapped by broken bodies. The memory hurt him, and it pushed him to act. On the third day, he gathered his courage. He walked toward her slowly, his boots pressing into the red sand. The girl stiffened, her body tensing like a bird ready to flee. No one ever came to her rock. This was her silent place, her invisible corner. Why was this stranger walking toward her? He stopped a few steps away, lowering himself so his tall figure would not seem threatening. For a moment he said nothing. Only the wind spoke, carrying the laughter of the children behind them. Finally, in a gentle voice, he asked, "Do you like the game?" She froze. The words were in human tongue, strange yet simple. She understood enough to nod, though her lips did not move. He smiled softly. "You watch every day." Her eyes flicked toward him, sharp, almost defensive. No one had ever acknowledged her watching before. She wanted to speak, but her throat felt tight. So she looked back at the children and stayed silent. The human did not leave. He sat on the ground nearby, pulling a small device from his bag. It sparked with blue light as he adjusted it. His hands worked with skill, fixing wires, pressing plates, testing buttons. She watched from the corner of her eye, curiosity tugging at her despite herself. He noticed. He pretended not to. Minutes passed, and finally she whispered, so quiet the wind almost stole the sound. "I can't play." The human looked up, his eyes gentle. "Why not?" Slowly she pulled back the cloth covering her knee. The truth lay bare, the emptiness where her legs should have been. For a long moment silence stretched between them. She expected pity, maybe the same sad eyes she had seen 1,000 times before. But the human did not look away. His gaze was steady, thoughtful, as if her missing leg was not the end of her story, but the beginning of something else. That night, he could not sleep. The image of the girl haunted him, the way she sat apart, the way her eyes burned with longing. He remembered Earth again. A boy he once knew who had lost an arm in an accident. A girl who had learned to walk with metal legs. Humans had built tools, machines, prosthetics to help their own children rise again. Why not here? Why not for her? He sat at his desk sketching on scraps of paper. Designs of wires, plates, joints, frames. A leg not of flesh but of steel and light. A leg that could run, kick, leap. The idea lit a fire inside him. He had not come to this world for glory, but perhaps he could give someone else theirs. And so the decision was made. The girl did not know it yet, but her life was about to change. The stranger with gentle eyes was more than just an engineer. He carried with him not only skill but hope. Hope that one day soon she would not be the child on the rock. Hope that one day soon she would stand A strange gift. The workshop smelled of metal and fire. Sparks danced in the air as the human bent over his table, his hands steady, his eyes sharp. Tools clicked, wires hummed, and bits of scrap lay scattered across the floor like fallen stars. For days he had worked in secret. While others repaired colony machines, he focused on something different, something smaller, something meant not for the colony but for one child. Piece by piece, it began to take shape. A frame of light steel, joints carved with care, wires hidden inside like veins of silver. It was not like the crude tools of the colony. This was delicate, balanced, almost alive. It was a leg, not a living one, no, but a leg made for running, for kicking, for standing tall. A leg made to give back what fate had stolen. The girl did not know this yet. She still sat on her rock, watching games she could not join. Sometimes she noticed the human walking past, his bag full of tools, his eyes warm with quiet thoughts. He never asked her to speak, never forced her into his world. He simply nodded in greeting, as if to remind her she was seen. One evening, when the suns were sinking and the desert sky glowed orange, he finally approached her again. But this time, his hands carried something wrapped in cloth. He placed it gently on the rock beside her. The girl's large eyes flicked toward it, then back to him. Her voice was wary, almost suspicious. "What is it?" The human smiled faintly. "A gift," she hesitated. No one gave her gifts, not since the accident, not since she had become the girl who could not run. Her fingers trembled as she touched the cloth. Slowly she pulled it back, and there it was, a leg of silver and steel, joints smooth as bone, wires glowing faintly like veins of light. At the foot, a rounded plate that could press into the sand without sinking. It looked strange, foreign, but powerful. Her breath caught. "What is this?" The human's voice was calm. "A prosthetic. Made for you." She stared at it as if it were a ghost. Her heart beat faster, confusion and fear twisting inside her. A leg? For her? It felt impossible. She shook her head quickly, pulling the cloth back over it. "No," she whispered. "Not for me." The human tilted his head. "Why not?" She hugged her arms around her body, her voice sharp with shame. "Because I will fall. Because I am broken. Because I can't." The human said nothing at first. He simply watched her, his gaze steady and patient. Then softly he replied, "You are not broken. You are unfinished." The words sank deep, strange, and heavy. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not pity, not sadness, but belief. Still, fear clung to her. He lifted the prosthetic again, showing her the design. "This is not just metal. It is a chance. If you trust me, I can fit it to you. It will take time. You will fall, yes, but you will also rise." Her eyes filled with tears she did not want to show. She turned away, staring at the children in the distance. They were playing again, chasing the ball beneath the fading suns. How many times had she dreamed of joining them? How many times had she imagined running across the sand again? The dream was close now, too close. It frightened her. "What if they laugh?" she whispered. The human's voice was firm, yet kind. "Then laugh louder. Show them you are more than their stares." The girl's hands trembled as she reached for the prosthetic again. The metal was cool beneath her fingers, smooth, almost alive. She lifted it, though it felt heavy, heavier than she expected. Heavy with hope, heavy with fear. Could this truly be hers? Could she really stand again? Her chest tightened, torn between longing and doubt. She wanted to believe, but belief was dangerous. Belief had betrayed her before. The human placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You do not have to decide today. But remember, this is yours. Whenever you are ready." He set the prosthetic carefully in her lap, then stood, leaving her with the gift wrapped once more in cloth. That night, she could not sleep. The strange leg lay beside her bed, glowing faintly in the dark. She stared at it for hours, afraid to touch it, yet unable to look away. Her mind filled with questions. What if it hurt? What if it failed? What if she fell again, harder than before? But then another question whispered inside her heart, small but louder than fear. What if it worked? She imagined herself running across the desert, the wind in her face, the ball at her feet. She imagined laughter, not from others but from herself. Real laughter, free and bright. For the first time in many seasons, she dared to hope. The gift was strange. The gift was frightening, but perhaps, just perhaps, the gift was her future. First steps. The morning air was cool, the desert sky pale with the first light of dawn. The colony still slept, but in the workshop the human waited. His tools were ready. The strange silver leg rested on the table, shining faintly as if it carried its own secret fire. The girl stood at the doorway, her body tense, her hands clutching the cloth tied around her missing limb. She had not wanted to come, not truly, but something stronger than fear had pulled her here. Her eyes flicked to the prosthetic. It looked smaller now, yet heavier than the desert itself. The human gave her a calm smile. "Are you ready?" She wanted to say no. Every part of her body screamed no, but her voice betrayed her, coming out in a whisper. Yes. The process was slow. The human guided her to sit on a low chair. With gentle hands, he unwrapped the cloth around her knee. She tried not to flinch as the old scar came into the open air. It was ugly, uneven, a reminder of everything she had lost. But the human did not look away. His face held no pity, only focus. He lifted the prosthetic carefully, sliding it into place. The metal frame locked around her knee with a soft click. Wires adjusted, plates shifted, hugging her leg as if it had been built only for her. She gasped at the strange sensation, the cool touch of metal becoming part of her body. The human tightened the straps and stepped back. "Stand when you're ready," her heart pounded. Stand, could she? She gripped the edge of the chair and pushed. Her one good leg pressed into the floor, trembling. The new leg felt strange, stiff, almost like it belonged to someone else. For a moment she rose halfway, and then collapsed back onto the chair. Her chest heaved, shame burning her cheeks. "I can't." The human shook his head gently. "Not can't, not yet." His calm voice steadied her. She tried again. This time she forced herself higher. Her body swayed, arms flailing for balance, but she was standing. Both feet, one of flesh, one of steel, pressed into the ground. She gasped. The world felt taller, wider, different. A single tear slid down her cheek. She was standing. For the first time since the accident, she was whole. But standing was only the beginning. "Take a step," the human said softly. Her throat went dry. The ground looked so far below, the air so unsteady. She lifted her good leg first, moving it forward carefully. Then she tried to shift her weight onto the prosthetic. The moment her weight pressed down, pain shot through her muscles and the balance broke. She stumbled forward and crashed to the floor. Dust rose. Her arms scraped against the ground. Behind her, she heard a burst of laughter. The children had gathered at the doorway, curious. They had followed, and now they watched. Her cheeks burned hotter than fire. She was on the ground, the broken girl, and they were laughing again. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tear the strange leg off and crawl back to her rock. But before she could move, a hand reached down. The human. His eyes held no laughter, no pity, only patience. "Again," he said firmly. Her chest rose and fell with anger. But she gritted her teeth and let him pull her up. Again she stood. Again she tried to step. Again she fell. The laughter stung, but the human's voice cut through it each time. Again. 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 She lost count of how many times she hit the ground. Her arms ached. Her legs shook, her throat burned with unspoken cries. The children grew bored and drifted away, their laughter fading. Only she and the human remained. And then, something changed. On her 10th or maybe 20th attempt, her foot pressed down, and this time the leg held. The wires adjusted, the frame balanced her weight. She wobbled, but she did not fall. Her breath caught. Slowly, she lifted her other foot and moved it forward. Step by step, she crossed the small workshop floor. The human's face broke into a wide smile. "You're walking," she laughed, a broken, breathless laugh, but real. "I'm walking." By the time the suns rose higher, she had taken not one step but many. Clumsy, slow, unsteady, but steps all the same. Every fall, every scrape, every ache was worth it. She stood in the middle of the workshop, sweat shining on her skin, her chest heaving with exhaustion. But her eyes were brighter than they had ever been. For the first time in so long, she was not just watching life. She was moving toward it. The human placed a hand on her shoulder. "Tomorrow we run." Her heart raced at the thought. Fear and excitement tangled together. Run? Could she really? She looked down at the silver leg gleaming in the light. For the first time, she dared to believe the answer was yes. The ball game. The suns hung high in the pale desert sky. Heat rippled across the sand as children gathered once more near the old fence. Their laughter filled the air, sharp and bright as the ball rolled between their feet. The game was the same as always, fast, wild, joyful. But today, something was different. At the edge of the field, the girl stood. Not on her rock, not sitting in silence, but standing tall. Her good leg pressed firm into the ground. Her silver leg gleamed in the sunlight, wires humming softly, joints shifting with quiet strength. For the first time, she had come not to watch, but to join. The children noticed her at once. Their laughter slowed. The ball rolled to a stop. Whispers spread quickly. What is she doing here? She can't play. Look at her leg. The girl's heart thudded hard against her chest. Fear rose like a wave, threatening to drown her courage. She wanted to turn back, to run to the safety of her rock, but she forced herself to stay. Her voice shook, but she spoke. Can I play? The silence was heavy. Some children looked at the ground. Others smirked, unsure if this was a joke. Finally, one boy picked up the ball. His eyes studied her, uncertain. Then, without a word, he tossed it gently toward her. The ball landed at her feet. Her breath caught. This was the moment. She bent slightly, balancing on the new leg. The metal frame held steady. Carefully, she lifted her good foot and kicked. The ball rolled forward. Not far, not strong, but enough. Gasps rose from the group. The boy who had tossed it stared wide-eyed. The girl's lips curved into the smallest smile. She could kick. She could play. The game began again, though slowly at first. The children passed the ball between each other, unsure of her place. She followed, her steps clumsy, her pace awkward. The sand shifted beneath her feet, and twice she almost fell. Laughter rippled at the edges. Not cruel, but uncertain. She felt the sting of it all the same. Then the ball came rolling toward her again. This time she did not hesitate. She lifted her prosthetic leg, the wires glowing faintly as the joint bent. With all her strength, she kicked. The ball shot forward faster than anyone expected. Dust rose in a sharp cloud as it flew across the field, straight into the open space between two players. For a heartbeat, silence filled the air. Then shouts erupted. She kicked it! Did you see that? The game grew faster. The ball came to her more often, sometimes by chance, sometimes because they began to trust her. Each time she struck it harder, steadier, with more confidence. Her silver leg moved with surprising power, as if it had been waiting all along for this moment. Then came the test. One boy, older and quick, dribbled the ball past three children, heading straight for the goal. The others chased, but none could catch him. Victory was almost his, but the girl was closer. Her heart thundered. She ran, not walked, not stumbled, but ran. At first her steps were uneven. Then the rhythm caught. Flesh and steel, pounding the sand in harmony. The wind rushed against her face. For the first time since the accident, she felt the world move beneath her in speed. She drew closer. The boy glanced back, his eyes widening in disbelief. She lunged forward. Her prosthetic leg swung, striking the ball with a loud crack. The ball flew sideways, far from the goal. Gasps and shouts filled the air. The boy stopped, stunned. The others cheered, their voices wild with surprise. The girl stumbled but did not fall. She stood, chest heaving, sweat shining on her skin. The ball rolled free, waiting for the next kick. And then, for the first time, someone called her name. Pass it here. She turned, saw the smiling face of a teammate waving for her. Her heart swelled. Without thinking, she kicked the ball toward him. He caught it, dribbled, and scored. The field erupted in cheers. The girl laughed, a sharp, bright sound she had not made in so long. She joined the chase, her legs carrying her faster with each step. The prosthetic moved like it was part of her, no longer strange, no longer heavy. Every moment of pain, every fall, every scar had led here to this game, to this joy. When the match ended, the children crowded around her. Their eyes no longer held pity. They were wide with awe, respect, even envy. You were amazing. That kick, did you see how far it went? You're one of us now. Her chest tightened with happiness so strong it hurt. She was no longer the shadow on the rock. She was a player, a teammate. The human engineer stood at the edge of the field, watching quietly. His smile was soft, proud. He did not need thanks. The look on her face was enough. As the suns dipped low and the game ended, the girl stood tall among her friends. For the first time, she did not feel broken. For the first time, she belonged. And deep in her heart, she knew this was only the beginning, a new beginning. The desert evening was alive with voices. The game had ended, but the laughter had not. Children still ran across the sand, chasing each other, replaying the best moments, shouting her name like it had always been part of the game. The girl stood in the middle of them, her chest rising and falling, sweat on her skin, dust clinging to her clothes. But none of that mattered. Her prosthetic leg hummed softly beneath her, steady and strong as if it had always belonged. For the first time in so many seasons, she was not watching. She was part of the story. One child tugged her arm, grinning. "How did you kick so far?" Another leaned close, eyes wide. "Can you show me again tomorrow?" Their questions tumbled over each other, quick and eager, filled with the kind of excitement she had only ever seen from a distance. She smiled shyly, unused to such attention. Her voice came out soft but clear. "Maybe tomorrow." The children cheered at once, racing off to chase the ball again. But this time they called to her too. "Come play again. Don't stop now." She laughed, a full, bright laugh that startled even herself. The sound felt strange on her tongue but warm in her chest. She had thought laughter was gone from her forever. She had been wrong. At the edge of the field, the human stood watching. His arms were crossed loosely, his face calm, but his eyes glowed with quiet pride. He had not cheered with the children. He had not shouted her name. He simply watched, content. She noticed him. Their eyes met across the sand. For a moment, the world grew still. She wanted to run to him, to say thank you, to tell him what he had given her. But he only nodded, the smallest gesture as if to say, "You did this." "Not me." Her throat tightened. Tears threatened to rise, but she blinked them away. She would thank him someday. For now, she wanted to hold on to this moment. As the suns dipped lower, painting the sky red and gold, the children began to drift home. Families called from doorways. Lights glowed inside the colony halls, and the game field slowly emptied. Still, she lingered. The sand was cool beneath her feet, and the wind carried the fading sound of laughter. She stood tall, her shadow stretching long and even across the ground. No longer a broken outline, no longer missing a piece. The human approached at last, his footsteps steady. He stopped beside her, not too close, not too far. "You played well," he said. Her lips curved into a smile. "I ran." "Yes," he agreed. "You ran." They stood in silence for a while, watching the last light fade. Her thoughts drifted back to the rock by the old fence. The place where she had sat day after day, silent, invisible, convinced her life was over. She remembered the weight of pity, the sting of laughter, the ache of longing. That girl felt like a ghost now, someone she once knew, but no longer was. She lifted her eyes to the sky. Stars were beginning to appear, small and sharp against the darkness. They seemed brighter tonight, as if celebrating with her. The human followed her gaze. His voice was low, almost to himself. Every ending is only the beginning of something else. She did not fully understand his words, but they sank deep inside her. A seed of meaning she would carry and grow. The next days passed differently. When the children gathered, they called her without hesitation. When the ball rolled across the sand, they expected her to chase it. When teams were made, her name was spoken like any other, with no pause, no doubt. She learned quickly. Her steps grew smoother, her balance steadier. Sometimes she stumbled, but now laughter followed in joy, not cruelty. She laughed too, brushing off the falls, knowing she would rise again. The prosthetic became part of her, not a burden, but a gift. She polished it each night, tracing the lines of steel with pride. To her, it was not just metal, it was freedom. And every evening, when the game ended, she found the human nearby, watching quietly. He never stepped forward, never claimed her success, but his eyes told her everything. He was proud. One night after the others had gone, she walked to him. The stars were high and the desert was quiet. She stood before him, small but strong, and finally spoke the words she had carried inside. "Thank you." The human's smile was gentle. "You don't owe me thanks. You did the work. You found your strength." She shook her head. "No, you gave me a chance." For a long moment he said nothing. Then he crouched, meeting her eyes. His voice was soft, filled with warmth. "Then promise me something." "Never stop running." Her heart swelled. She nodded. "I promise." The desert wind rose, carrying her laughter far across the sand. It was no longer the laugh of a broken child, but of someone reborn. From that day, she was no longer the girl who only watched. She was the girl who played, who ran, who laughed. The girl who turned silence into song. And long after, when the colony children told stories of their games, her name was always there. The one who stood, the one who fought, the one who proved that even in the harshest desert hope could grow. Her journey had only just begun,